Next game that we got is a top 10 showdown, and Georgia won it convincingly. A 35-10 final score over Texas. Let's go over the highest graded player, starting off with the Georgia Bulldogs. The highest graded player was the true freshman defensive tackle Elijah Griffin. I'll talk about him later on. 75.1 grade. KJ Bolden, the true sophomore safety, 74.9. Another D tackle here in Kristen Miller, 74.7. Nate Frazier, who's been great recently at running back, 74.5. London Humphreys, the wide receiver, 73.9. And actually the highest grade player is Gunnar Stockton, who had a 79.1 grade in the win for the Bulldogs. Let's go over to Texas with their highest grade players in the loss. Highest grade player was the true sophomore superstar edge rusher Colin Simmons, 75.8. Trey Wisner, the running back, 74. Wide receiver Emmett Mosley with a 70 grade. Hiro Kanu, the D tackle, with a 70 as well. Ty Anthony Smith, the linebacker, 69.3. And Arch Manning with a 72.9 grade in the loss. Dalton, what told the story in this game?
So my biggest concern, and I kind of previewed the game on Tuesday with this perspective in mind, my biggest concern for Texas was that are they just going to be so one-dimensional in this game that their offense isn't going to work? Because against Georgia, it's really hard to win in a one-dimensional fashion unless your quarterback's absolutely special, and maybe one day Manning will be. But in this game, when you have a Texas team that only ran for 39 yards, it's just not going to happen. It's been the same problem it's been all year. They can't run the football. This offensive line gets beat in the trenches in their biggest games, right? 14 carries for 39 yards. 16 of those yards were on Trey Wisner's first carry of the game. So the rest of the game, they went 13 carries for 23 yards. You just can't beat Georgia like that when you're getting outrushed. Look, Georgia, 132 rushing yards on 33 carries. It's only 4 yards flat, but at least it's something, right? They picked up 9 first downs on the ground, and Texas only 3. I just don't think you can walk in, especially knowing the matchup going into it with Texas offensive line and this Georgia run defense that is so elite. You're asking Arch Manning to do way too much. He didn't play that bad a game. The interception I believe it was in the first half in the second quarter, that wasn't great. Obviously, just an errant throw. Interception is what it is. But I think you're just looking at a game where you have one team that was at least somewhat two-dimensional on offense, and the other one wasn't. And then once you're one-dimensional against Kirby Smart and Glenn Schumann, you're just done for. It's just not going to work, right? I mean, so I think the fact that you're not going to win many games with 39 rushing yards, but especially not against this Georgia defense. It's just not going to happen. So to me, that was the difference. That was my biggest concern going into it was, does Texas have any way to run the football? And they didn't.
And Texas couldn't run the football because, one, the Texas run game has been really struggling all year. And two, Georgia's run defense has been stellar this year. And yes, they're great at fitting up the run and they're great with their run fits, but the best part of this Georgia defense, Dalton, is their tackling. My stat told the story of this game. Georgia had 2 missed tackles the entire game. They lead the country right now with a 92.5 tackling grade this year. Just an absolute clinic by Kirby Smart's defense in this one. Texas broke 1 tackle on 14 rushing attempts. They had 39 yards total on the ground and only 1 broken tackle on 27 catches as well. For a Texas offense that, because of the offensive line, doesn't really push the ball downfield, so they rely a lot on yards after the catch from their receivers, they didn't get any in this game against Georgia because Georgia's defense, first of all, was so good at wrapping up one-on-one when they had the opportunity. And second of all, they swarmed to the football in this game as well. So 2 missed tackles total by Georgia in this one is just absolutely incredible work by Kirby Smart and Glenn Schumann's defense.
I mean, they're just, if nothing else, they may have their flaws at times, and we've talked about their pass rush, and even at times their coverage has wavered, but they do the fundamental things well, right? They're always in the right gap, and they tackle, like you mentioned, they're the best tackling team in the country. That makes a big difference, because how often in college football do you watch a game and go, God, these guys can't tackle. They can't neither team can tackle at all. There's 20 missed tackles on each side. That is a huge advantage. And this was playing most of the game without their star linebacker C.J. Allen out there too. So, I mean, you talk about just a team-wide approach of playing fundamentally sound football and tackling extremely well. That did make a big difference.
So who impressed you the most in this one?
Look, give him credit in the biggest game of the year for him, you could argue, in a game that Georgia really had to have, or you go into this Georgia Tech game in a couple weeks in some danger. Gunnar Stockton was outstanding. Outside of the interception he threw to Anthony Hill in the third quarter that gave Texas 7 points, he was outstanding. 76.9 passing grade, 24 for 29, 4 touchdowns, 2 big-time throws, also added a rushing touchdown. He just continues to get better and better as the year goes on, and we obviously had our doubts about him through the first half of the year, but the last 5-6 weeks, he has been terrific. He's a guy who can get this Georgia team into national championship contention. He's proven it every single week now.
Yeah, how about this? 5 incompletions for Gunnar Stockton and 5 total touchdowns for Gunnar Stockton. That'll do. That'll do against the Texas
That'll
defense.
do for sure.
Against an elite Texas defense, too, by the way.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the thing is he came out and you could feel the confidence and he was just attacking like it was any other defense. He was not afraid by any means. Mike Bobo had a great game plan. Again, they balanced this thing out with the run game. Even on days when they don't run for 8 yards a carry, they ran for enough, right? And that's exactly, again, to me, what Texas didn't have is that they didn't have the run game to be able to take the pressure off their quarterback. So despite Stockton dropping back 32 times to throw, you never really felt like he was rattled for even a single play. You never felt like he didn't have that confidence that he couldn't beat this defense. He was terrific in this game outside of one bad throw.
And I'll tell you what, I don't know if he's really in the running to win the Heisman Trophy right now, but we could see Gunnar Stockton in New York for the Heisman ceremony, the way he's looking right now and the way he's leading this Georgia team to what should be at least the number 4 ranking. I should be the number 4 ranking in college football. My most impressive is going to be Elijah Griffin, the true freshman defensive tackle. This guy was the number 3 overall recruit coming out of high school behind Bryce Underwood, the quarterback at Michigan, and behind Keelan Russell, the quarterback at Alabama. So Elijah Griffin actually was the highest ranked non-quarterback coming out of high school this past recruiting class, and he showed why in this game. 5 pressures and a hit on 28 pass rushing snaps, a 17.9% pressure rate against Texas in this one. He's a really, really fluid athlete, around 6'4", 310 pounds. He fires off the snap and into the backfield. Still adding strength in the run game right now, but that'll come with more time in the weight room. Still has 2 more years of college football at least after this. He has great size and length, though, 6'4", 310, with 34.5-inch arms and 10-inch hands as well. The best game of his career so far. He's got a very, very bright future ahead, and he was the highest-rated defensive tackle coming out of high school since Walter Nolan in 2022. And Elijah Griffin right now, Dalton, already starting for Georgia as a true freshman. This guy is unreal, and for, usually at Kirby Smart, the way he recruits and all that, it takes a while even for these top 5 recruits to play. Elijah Griffin is so special that this guy is getting starting snaps as a true freshman, and he was phenomenal against Texas.
Chalk a win for your 5-star recruit narrative.
There you go.
Yeah, that's for sure, and we're going to see 2 more years of Griffin dominating on that defensive line. They always find more. They always find more of him. Doesn't matter how highly recruited or, they eventually, if you talk about a first-round pick for him, but there's always more defensive talent rolling through there in that front 7. He's just another one in a long line of them.
Absolutely. So Georgia getting a massive win in the SEC standings. Before we move on, Dalton, I feel like we should talk about Texas real quick. Do you think they're dead? 3 losses now in the year. They still have Texas A&M at the end of the year, too, who's the number 3 team in the country, at least right now. Is Texas dead, or is there still a scenario where with 3 losses they can get into the playoffs?
My personal opinion is that they should be dead.
Okay.
I know wins over Oklahoma and Vanderbilt are obviously very good, especially by multiple scores in the case of Oklahoma. But I look at a team, they lost to Ohio State. They still, to this day, have played the closest game with Ohio State out of anybody, but a loss is a loss. This game, they just got blown out. They were never in this game offensively, especially. And what sticks out to me, and I think it's similar to what we had with Alabama last year, for as many close calls and things as Florida has had, Florida's 3-7. And Texas was really the one real team that they beat. I think, to me, if you have that loss on you, even if you do beat A&M, I don't think there's enough here. I don't think there's enough here, even with a win against Arkansas and A&M, for Texas to get in at 9-3. Me personally, I think they're shot.
Yeah.
I know how the SEC is. I know all that stuff. But I think that's the biggest stain to me is that had it been, they beat Florida and actually maybe they lost to Oklahoma, that might be something different as, you don't have some terrible loss. The SEC is just a gauntlet. But, you're going to convince me, you're going to try to convince me Florida's the best 3-7 team you've ever seen. But I don't think you can have that loss on your resume as one of 3. And it's not like this was a close game. They got blown out by Georgia. So it just felt like you were watching 2 different class of teams. I don't think Texas should be alive in this playoff race. I don't.
So I think they're still alive. I don't know if I agree. I think I might be with you where I think they should be dead, but I think there is a scenario where they are still alive because yes, they did beat Oklahoma, they beat Vanderbilt, they played the closest game all year to Ohio State. If they beat Texas A&M, that'd be a top 5 win for Texas as well. I'm not ready to declare them dead. Do I think even with a win over A&M, it's likely they make the playoff? No, but I think if further chaos happens and Texas beats Texas A&M, there is a world, I think, where Texas still gets in at 9-3, but I'm with you. I think most likely Texas is not making the playoff no matter what.
I just look at all the teams they would need to lose. And Notre Dame beating Pitt, which we'll get to in a bit, I think that hurts their case. I think they would have got them at 9-3 is a better case than Notre Dame at 9-3, but Notre Dame, barring a loss to Stanford or Syracuse, they're not going to get to 3 losses. Oklahoma would have to lose. Utah maybe would have, I think they're going to drop below Utah. They're going to drop below Utah with this. They're going to drop below Vanderbilt with this, even though they've won head-to-head with the 3rd loss. I mean, then you're talking Miami. That would be the question for me is how many teams in front of them do they need to lose? I think it would be too many, to be honest with you, especially with some of the easier roads that some of these teams in front of them have now.
Yeah. So, again, I think they're most likely dead, but I'm not ready to call it yet because there is a world where chaos happens and Texas can get in at 9-3. So, I'm not saying ready to call it yet, call time of death yet for Texas, but it is looking likely that the Longhorns will miss out, which Dalton, if you look at it right now, in the preseason AP top 25, the number 1 team in the country was Texas. They're dead. Penn State, or maybe dead. Penn State, absolutely dead. Clemson, number 4, absolutely dead as well. So 3 of the top 4 teams in the country might be dead for the playoff with 2 weeks left right now.
I think at the end of the show, when you have your top 25 and your bracket up, I think what we have the discussion of is how many teams are locked in and then what's left, right? And then we get into some of those scenarios for most of these teams 2 weeks to go.
Yep. So Texas suffering maybe a fatal blow to their playoff hopes with a 35-10 loss to Georgia. Georgia with Alabama's loss as well, all of a sudden is a pretty good chance at maybe making it to the SEC title game later on this year.